chat about
Is
life
this a
life
college
situations.
football talk?
No, this isn't college football. This is about life.
Russ, you
I'm
there?
prepared, so
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
nothing to hide over here.
Exactly. I'm like, what? Okay, so we'll see the blitz in about 10 minutes. But for now, Russ, let's start off with some news. We want to get some perspective from you on the Tigers naming a general manager in Jeff Greenberg. So
Yeah.
first off, I didn't even think about the fact that, they had a position open because technically Scott Harris is there, but he's above him and he took over for Alavila not long ago. And then also I see in the bio that Greenberg was coming from the Blackhawks just now. So what do you got on this?
So Jeff Greenberg was the assistant GM for the Chicago Cubs when I was still on the beat in 2020, 2021, etc. He'd been with the Cubs for 11 seasons and one of those guys that really worked his way up in that front office and done a lot of different jobs. His final stop was assistant GM before he went over to the Blackhawks because he actually had interviewed for that position to be the general manager of the Chicago Blackhawks before they hired their GM, Kyle Davidson, last year. And so a guy that is very smart, went to Columbia, got a law degree from Columbia, is a guy that worked in pro scouting and development, and he's big into analytics, which is why, that background helped in both baseball and in hockey. So a smart guy, a guy that got to work with Scott Harris here in Chicago, but a guy who has also been in a lot of different roles and should be able to help the Tigers in terms of, scouting, player development, analytics, the whole shebang.
Now, is he going to be in a role like a lot of teams are now switching their roles where the president is technically the one making all the decisions? Or is it going to be like, oh, well, this GM, Jeff Greenberg built this team and now this team isn't good? Or is it going to be a more traditional, like or the newer role where it's like scouting and player development and all that stuff?
I think it's going to be the latter, right? Like, I think if you see, like, what you're talking about, the model in Major League Baseball, where you have the president of baseball operations, who is the figurehead, who is the guy that has the final say, right? What David Stearns is going to be for the New York Mets, what Jed Hoyer is for the Chicago Cubs. A lot of teams using that model. And I think when you have it that way, where you have the defined roles, hey, this is the president of baseball ops, this is the general manager that handles a lot of things, handles the day-to-day, but always that guy who's at the top, the president, is going to be the one making a lot of those decisions. And a lot of the president of baseball ops in baseball would say, hey, we're going to work in concert. We're going to work together and do a lot of these things. Like, I think for Scott Harris and Jeff Greenberg, since we're talking about them, they come from the Chicago Cubs model where you had Theo Epstein at the top, right? When in that 2016 run they made, you had Jed Hoyer, who was the general manager. And when Theo left, then Jed became the president of baseball ops, and they hired Carter Hawkins to be the GM. So it's the model that they know, right? It's the model that Scott Harris knows from his time, and even in his time in San Francisco, where he was in that GM role before he got elevated to president of baseball operations in Detroit. So I think it's the model that I think a lot of teams has seen works in Major League Baseball right now.
By the way, you're clearly not talking about the White Sox because they had a president and GM that didn't work together. But that's a whole different story. That's a whole different story. That wasn't the point. My thing is are they hope? That was just sorry. That was kind of a cheap shot by Russ. But are they hoping for like a Jerry Krause kind of deal with the Bulls? Because Jerry Krause is in baseball, goes to the Bulls. Obviously, he had Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman and that whole crew. But now it seems weird to me that a baseball guy would go to hockey and then he comes back to baseball. Like to me, I know analytics are analytics, but there's still there has to be some sort of like, okay, I'm a baseball guy. I've been a baseball guy for a long time. Now the Blackhawks want me, and obviously they got the first pick and got the guy they wanted. But it just seems odd to me that you would switch sports like this.
I don't think it's weird. Personally, my opinion is being able to have interests outside of baseball, outside of whatever you do, is really good for the job that you do. And it's not like he's a guy that wasn't in baseball at all before, or like he was in hockey for 10 years before he came to baseball. He was in baseball for 11 years, doing every role in the front office besides being a general manager, and then decided to go work with the Chicago Blackhawks. And it was a brief stint, right? A year, and then he comes back to baseball when he now has a job with a guy that he worked with here in Chicago and can use all those same skills that he learned in his 11 years with the Chicago Cubs into his new role. So I don't think it's as weird a transition, especially when, look, I think I'm going to use myself as an example here. everybody knows I'm a baseball guy through and through. But I do a show where I have to talk about other sports. That doesn't mean I'm not a baseball guy. I can still come on here and you can still write, still break news, do all these different things. But it makes me more well-rounded because I can talk about other things. And I think in a similar sense for Jeff Greenberg, the ability to go into analytics in baseball and in hockey, it's just another, club in your bag, right, so to speak, when it comes to
Russ,
baseball and helping build.
Listen, I have fantasy football teams. Does that make me qualified to be a football GM? Like, I have hobbies outside. That doesn't make me. I mean, I like hockey. Can I be assistant GM for the Blackhawks? I'm open.
Brother, over a decade in a front office.
No, listen. I'm not saying the baseball part is strange. It's just weird that he left baseball to go to hockey and now he's back as GM. It's nothing about like. Listen, I hope it's a great hire for the Tigers, and I think he's done some great things in baseball. But it's just weird you would leave to go to hockey and then come back. That's what's strange to me. It'd be like me being like, yeah, I talk about baseball every day. I'm going to go on game day and be, Fox Big Noon and talk football for a year or two, and then I'm coming back because I like college football.
Here's the other part. Sometimes about opportunity. Like maybe the job that he wanted wasn't out there. He saw an opportunity to do something that he wanted to do. We got to stay in the city of Chicago. He has hockey in his blood. And so if you have a chance to do all those things, and then the job that you always envisioned yourself in opens up, then it's like, okay, now's the time for me to go back to baseball where I want to be. So I just think there are 30 jobs in baseball when it comes to the GM positions, because a lot of every team doesn't have a president of baseball operations. So there's only a select number of jobs. And we talked about this last week, AJ, like there's only 30 managers in the big leagues, right? And so those jobs are precious. And so when you get an opportunity to do that, that's when you got to make your move.
I completely agree. And I also want to say, too, the White Sox, they didn't go outside of any scope of baseball, let alone outside of their organization, and we roasted them on here. So it's kind of like, it's good to see, to me, it's good to see different perspectives. It's good to see different perspectives in different sports and how to handle personalities. So I think
we didn't roast them. You guys did. I was only positive.
You're right. Okay? You're right.
So I'm sorry. Let's just get that out there that I was positive. You guys roasted them.
I roasted them. Russ, I roasted them.
And listen, it's fine. It's fine. I was here, and I'm not going to say that AJ roasted them, but I'm not going to say that he didn't roast them.
It was me. I'm sorry. Getsy was hiring all of his buddies that he played with and didn't get a call. So now I'm pissed. Anyway.